Nate Marchand, Personal Journal. My broadcast with Mr. DiManna was predictably long, and it was more exhausting than I expected. After I said goodbye to Polly, Annie, Danny, I went to my cabin to check my email. Jimmy was outside doing some work on Ubermogura, and Kaguya was finalizing the guest list for her and Jimmy's wedding. Kaguya had no one she could invite since she'd broken away from the Zillions, and Jimmy's list was short since most of his family died during the war in space. The names he did have were his old childhood best friend Masao and colleagues from NASA and the Air Force, although most of them were substantially older than him. Well, they at least looked older. Jimmy's graceful aging is as much a mystery as how he miraculously survived the war in space. Anyway, my inbox was overstuffed with emails, mostly spam from the usual Nigerian princes and, shall we say, licentious tokusatsu websites. I think I even saw a thinly veiled recruitment email from Shocker. How many times can common writers wreck them before they stop rebranding? But buried among all these were a few messages I cared about. Like this one from Raymond and Gary. It says, Mr. Marchand, you'll be happy to know that your assailant, Delia Wegner, alias Psychodelia, will soon have her day in court. We've housed her in Gary's apartment since she arrived. She's gotten along swimmingly with Gary's cat, or so I'm told. I spend most of my time at the office. Speaking of which, Gary's been more than happy sleeping at the office more than usual to give her privacy. Note from Gary. No, I'm not. I miss my bed. Enclosed in this electrical letter is the official statement that we will post on the Twitboard X or whatever you kids call that radio screen that used to have a big blue bird. The statement said, Delia Wegner stands accused of assault, attempted murder, torture, and kidnapping, among other charges. These were committed under the alias Psychodelia, a name she took as a member of the cult, the Church of Mothrianity, which is located in Rolisica. Wegner and her older sister Nerissa, alias Peppermoth, were street urchins on the brink of selling their bodies to survive when they were taken in by the cult's leader Jerry Papke, alias Mott Priester Jerry Knockfalter. The cult's hierarchy consists of ranks named after the developmental stages of moths: larva, pupa, imago. But members strive to achieve the highest rank, the Transformed, and only the most devoted members achieve it. If chosen by the Knockfalter, church members, who are mostly women, are taken to a secret chamber housing several massive cocoons. By sleeping in them, the women metamorphose into superhumans who perform special missions for the Knockfalter. The process is painful and dangerous. Some do not survive it. However, both Delia and her sister emerged with mutated bodies. Nerissa was the first of several transformed, colloquially known as Bug Ladies, sent to infiltrate Monster Island with various objectives. All of them were defeated by the superheroine Crystal Lady. Angered by her sister's death, Delia demanded the Knockfalter allow her to seek revenge on Crystal Lady, but she was denied. She instead went rogue after months of planning, forfeiting her membership in the church. She subsequently found and tortured Nate Marchand to lure Crystal Lady into a trap, but her plan was foiled by the magical girl. I appreciated Raymond and Gary keeping Jessica's name out of this, even if her true identity is sort of public. Anyway, since then, Delia has undergone extensive psychological and genetic therapy to reverse the mutations and brainwashing inflicted on her. Delia is willing to accept responsibility for her actions. The letter concluded with, We have every confidence of getting a reduced sentence for Miss Wegner. However, this will require testimony from your sister as Crystal Lady, Jim Dandy, a superhero testifying in court. That's always an exciting day for a lawyer. Anyway, we should have all this settled before Mr. Crane's wedding with Miss Kaguya. Take care and come back soon. Believe it or not, I miss having you around. Note from Gary. Me too. Well, at least someone on the island appreciates me. Unlike the author of the next email I read. Jessica said, Hi, Baka. I guess I'll ask, how are you? I heard you went to G-Fest without me. No fair. But whatever. I'm sure Gary and Raymond sent you the email about Delia. I can't believe how evil the Church of Mothrianity is. Well, actually, I can. But you get what I mean. I almost wish I could attack their temple myself, but there's no way Rolisica will let me in. Anything and anyone connected to Mothra is barred from entry. I'm amazed they let this cult exist, but they're probably too scared to do anything about it. And there's all the wars going on in Eastern Europe. They aren't part of them, but it's got them distracted. I guess I'm stuck waiting for the Knockfalter to send another bug lady to the island. I used to be excited about having an arch nemesis, but now, not so much. It's not as fun when you hear about the horrifying things he does to those girls. After fighting Fausta and Delia, it's gonna be difficult for me to take down another one of his minions. I've been asking Reverend Mifune to pray I don't have to. But in happier news, Kaguya asked me to be her maid of honor. That surprised me, but it shouldn't have. It's not like she has any real family on Planet X who could come. That place has been a mess since the 60s. Let's hope the controller never comes back. Anyway, she's all by herself on Earth, but I guess that's true for Jimmy too. No wonder they connected. While I'm excited, I hope I'm not always a bridesmaid, never a bride. I know I'm still technically young. My age is weird. Why'd I have to be a clone? But I need a tuxedo mask for my Sailor Moon. And now! I tried a superhero dating app and flirted with all the dreamy common writers, but they never replied to my messages. Angry face emoji. When the cat's away, the mouse does dumb stuff. I'd rather not have to be a big pseudo brother, but gah, it's the only way I know how to be. Also, it seems like unluckiness in love is genetic. Couldn't have happened to a better gal. Anyway, she went on. I guess I'll distract myself by picking out a bridesmaid's dress for the wedding. Kaguya made an offer with a local shop in Ogasawara. Warn me when you're coming back so I can avoid you. Bye! That teleporter accident might be the worst thing to ever happen to me. Finally, I had an email from Ricky that said, Hey Nate, how's it going? It's been busy around here with all the kaiju getting shipped back. These drones weren't designed to do this much work. Some of these palookas didn't like coming back. That big red spider was the worst troublemaker. He was so angry after waking up on the island that he picked fights with some of the kaijin and with Jet Jaguar when he was normal-sized and gigantic. Seeing a superhero must have been a trigger for him. There have also been a lot of complaints from tourists about the Korean kaiju getting moved to their own island. Did your friend forget Korea is the third most popular country with kaiju? By the way, Jimmy asked me to be a groomsman for the wedding. I was pretty flattered. He didn't tell me who else he asked, though. My guess is one of his friends at NASA is his best man. Really? Jimmy asked him to be a groomsman? Ricky closed his letter with, Things have been pretty strange with the board lately. Rumor has it a few members quit. Why? Supposedly because of a sponsorship deal that went south or someone trying to muscle his way into the board like Cameron Winter did a while back. I get fewer mandates from him now. Not sure what to do with that. On the bright side, it lets me see the wife and kids a bit more. Watch yourself, Nate. The board being weird, secretive, and unscrupulous? In other news, the sky is blue. I found myself weirdly annoyed by Ricky mentioning his wife and family. I closed my laptop and laid on my cot for a quick nap. The caffeine was wearing off, and my supply of kaiju energy drinks was running low. But my phone buzzed. I checked it and saw a text message from Jimmy that said, Meet me on Ubermogura's shoulder. I huffed and left my cabin. A few minutes later, I walked through the side door on Ubermogura's head. The warm Thai breeze whistled in my ears. Thankfully, it wasn't strong enough to blow me off. Jimmy was holding a tablet as he watched a drone fly in a pre-programmed pattern while emptying a can of spray paint onto the mecha's hull. There I saw a half-finished caricature of a Zillion woman wearing a sexy orange spacesuit. Obvious inspiration is obvious. I wonder how she feels about it. And riding a P-1 rocket with the text, We shall overcome, below it. The completed design was on Jimmy's tablet. Scrounged up some parts for an artistic drone, I asked. Jimmy nodded and said he was experimenting with some art software. He hoped he might be able to patent it for commercial use. I told him we'd debate the ethical use of AI later. What'd you want to talk to me about, I asked. The wedding, he said. The proverbial muzzle on my mouth fell off. This late in the game and now you want to include me in the planning? Jimmy shot me a quick glare and quipped, Did you forget your afternoon caffeine shot? I'll get it later, I retorted. What do you need help with? The location? Jimmy replied, No, we're having the ceremony at the Monster Island Chapel with Reverend Mifune presiding. I said, how old-fashioned. I expect you to have it at your garage. Jimmy replied, no, but maybe that's where we can have the bachelor party. To which I blurted, oh, goody-goody gumdrops. Just make sure I get an invitation. Jimmy scowled at me and said, you definitely will. I interrupted with, cool, you can play laser tag or something there, but it might be a little dangerous to... Jimmy interrupted me by finishing his sentence, because I want you to be my best man. I was... what's the funny word? Gobsmacked. Composed myself and said, best man. I'm honored. Jimmy replied, you should be. I said, I'm just a little surprised. Jimmy said that was understandable because he and Kaguya had been so busy, they only now chose their wedding parties. But who else would I pick, he added. After everything we've been through since we started the show, you're practically my best friend. All I could do was glance away for a second and nod. Finally, I said, sorry for my rudeness, Jimmy said. It's fine. You've been under a lot of stress lately, he added, and I'm sure your time will come soon. I shrugged and said, sure, thanks. You're practically required by law to say that, so I can't hold it against him. But as someone who's been chronically single for years, it's small comfort. Jimmy then told me his groomsmen were Jet, Gary, Raymond, and Ricky. He wanted to include a friend or two from NASA, but they were too busy to even attend. There had been weird astronomical phenomena recently, and they were preoccupied with studying it. Jimmy was disappointed, but he understood. Kaguya's wedding party was obviously harder to pick. I said I already knew Jessica was the maid of honor, and Jimmy told me he asked Corone and the Shobajin to join at Jessica's suggestion. I jokingly said he may as well add Bonnie Lass, the Nessie's brasserie waitress, while he was at it. Who? He asked. Never mind, I said. He did mention that he arranged for the brasserie to do the catering and the Marcolite Lounge to host the reception. I sighed at the thought of dealing with my former nemesis again. We talked for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then I went back down to my cabin. I plopped onto my cot and exhaled. I thought back to what my pseudo-sister said in her email and wondered, is it possible to always be a groomsman and never a groom? I had hardly any time to think before dark shadows enveloped me in a nap. End journal entry. MIFV Episode 97 Epilogue, The Third Wheel, starring Nathan Marchand as MIFV Nate. Written, directed, produced, and edited by Nathan Marchand. Music tracks included This Feeling by Oceans Andrew and Abandoned by God by Road to Ka, with other tracks courtesy of Fesliyan Studios. Sound effects sourced from freesound.org and created by JP Gant. Our story segments were made possible by the generous MIFV Max members on Patreon, including executive producer Damon Noyes. This is a fan production and no copyright infringement is intended or implied. All characters, video clips, and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders. MIFV is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production and a proud member of Pod Nation. Thank you for listening. Next time, For Whom the Bell Trolls.